Are you stuck in the same old routine at work? Do you find yourself hitting a creative wall, unable to see beyond your current perspective? It's time to break free and unlock the power of fresh perspectives. Hello, I'm David Guthrow, back here with another episode of Discover Fresh Perspectives. And today as my guest, I have Devin Bisanz. So first of all, welcome, Devin.
Thank you, David.
So, Devin, one of the things that I understand you're passionate about is speaking, and you have some big dreams of where you'd like to go with that. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you love about speaking and what you're doing to try to get to whatever level you'd like to?
Sure. Let me take you back a little bit. When I was in college, I had a traumatic brain injury. And when I went to college, I had to go into the brain injury center, and I had to do like rehab for my brain because of a motorcycle accident. I'd seen 1,000 doctors, but I always had a lot of enjoying meeting people and charisma or charm, whatever you call it. So I became an ambassador for this college in New Caledonia where I was at. And I started being on posters around the college for kayaking, different sporting things. One day they said, "Hey, can you come and do a presentation for the people who donate scholarships and give donations to the college?" So there's like 150 business leaders there. And I had to write a little speech about why the Brain Injury Center helped me out. I put it together and I went up on the stage and I opened up with a bad joke and didn't get any laughs. That was my first time not getting any laughs at a bad joke, but now I don't care anymore. But yeah, I went through this presentation and afterward, everybody stood up. They're giving me the standing ovation. And it was such a crazy, amazing feeling that I never let that go. I still think about that even to this day.
So first of all, I've learned something already. I didn't know that you had that brain injury. And now here you are today. And I've seen you. You seem incredibly comfortable on a stage in front of people. So tell me a little bit more about how you got to there from where you were and coming out of New Caledonia.
Yeah, cool. I came out of New Caledonia in 2008. I chased a girl to Vancouver. Because I was up in Prince George. You ever chase a girl somewhere?
Not that far, no, but thanks for offering that as a possibility.
I got to Vancouver and I was like, what the heck? Like, what am I going to do here? And I started knocking doors. That's my first job, a door-to-door salesperson.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was dating this Italian girl and her dad wouldn't let us sort of date. Like he wouldn't let her stay over at my place or anything. She was Italian. The first thing he said to me was, my daughter doesn't move out until she's married. That was like the first sentence I heard from him. So I was trying to figure out how to like live down here and work. And I started that door knocking job. And I had a bit of a drug problem before in Prince George. That brain injury led me to doctors. It led me to pills, which led me to other drugs. And I put it all away and came to Vancouver. And then after I was down here for a while, I was by myself. I was really lonely and I was making some good money sometimes while I was knocking doors. And I went drinking by myself at Applebee's one day and the little inner thing just started talking to me. And I ended up getting back into drugs down here. So what happened was, I'm going to shorten this story up a bit.
No, go for it.
I started writing a book because I was so confused. And I was like, these drugs are never going to let me go. They're going to screw me up forever. And I started writing my book and I would read back this book. Like, you've written some books, right?
No, thanks for embarrassing me. No, I haven't. I do paragraphs.
Oh, okay. But have you ever journaled or anything?
Like I said, thanks for embarrassing me. I write paragraphs.
So happy I did that. I'm so happy, David. Oh, I love you so much. So anyway, what happened was I was writing this book and I'd go back and I'd look at what I wrote and I'd be like, I don't feel that way. Like, that's not who I am. And I would rewrite it. And I started to rewrite it and I wrote myself out of addiction and I wrote myself out of these problems and I started writing myself into my future. And by doing so, I said, oh my goodness, I have this book and some people read it. They thought it was pretty good. And I was thinking in my head, I got to go talk about it. So I joined Toastmasters International in 2010. And and I thought I was a good speaker, by the way. I didn't think I had to learn speaking. I thought it was great. But I went there and I could not connect with Toastmasters. Like it
In what, well, first of all, congratulations for moving through 2 episodes of addiction. That's fabulous. A lot of people don't have the intestinal fortitude to do that, Devin. So congratulations. That's fabulous. And then now back to our regularly scheduled program. What didn't connect with you about Toastmasters? And it's not to trash Toastmasters, but just concern, would be interested in what it didn't do for you that you were looking for.
That's a good question, because the thing that happened is they're very methodical in how they do their presentations. Like everything is a 3-point speech, and there's a lot of politics involved in the way. Hey, listen, I graduated their program in the end. I became a distinguished Toastmaster, so I feel like I can beat them up just a little bit. But it's very old school. Like you didn't really go there, and it was more self-paced. So what was happening to me was people would say, "Oh, well, this is why you're not connecting with the audience." And then another person would contradict what that person said. And then another person would contradict what that person said. And all of these contradictions. And I was like, I don't even know what makes a good speaker anymore.
Hmm.
And then I did something pretty smart, which I think was I reached out to, Joe Roberts, Skid Row CEO.
Yep.
I reached out to him and a bunch of his friends, and he got back to me right away. And I said, "Hey, Joe, can I sit down and pick your brain for a bit?" What a nice guy. He's so generous. He brought me over to his house. I brought a video camera, and he gave me like a 2.5 hour, just my wife and I. She wasn't my wife at the time because my girlfriend broke up with me. I met a new girl, and we were just started dating. I was like, "You got to come meet this Joe Roberts. Seems like a cool guy." And that was kind of how I started to really think about speaking differently after meeting him. And so what I did was I went home and I drew eyes on paper, like just a bunch of eyes.
Like the letter I, or like an eye on your head?
Yeah, eyeballs, just
Okay.
no mouse, just eyeballs. And I put them around my living room, like all around my whole living room, so I could have an audience. And then I started talking to them every day. And my friends would come over and they'd be like, "What the heck is wrong? Are you okay? Like, did you slip? Did you fall back down here?" But I just started recording myself, and I started taking these little tips and tricks I learned from Joe Roberts and from some other speakers that I talked to and I reached out to. And when I went back into the Toastmasters arena, I got a different response, because now I wasn't thinking so much about myself. I was just more like in it with the audience. It took away all my fear. Once you overcome that fear of talking to an empty room, your neighbors can all hear you. Once you lose all of that, now you can just become sort of a biofeedback unit of the audience. And that's what I found happened.
Wow, that's fabulous. That's a great story. And what from there? I mean, one of the things that you said when you're just getting ready for this conversation is that you don't consider yourself an expert who speaks, but you consider yourself a speaker who's an expert at that. So, from a self-assessment perspective, what would you say are some of the things that you're good at, Devin? Like, this is not a time to be either bragging or humble. It's, if you look at it objectively, as I'm sure you're able to do, what would you say you're actually good at? Because you're very comfortable. Sorry, I gave away the first one. In front of
thank you. You got a few more? I'll take them. Well, one thing I would say that I'm really good at is I think of speaking as every single conversation that I have. And I don't think of it as being in front of an audience at all. And I'm really good at going into a room and just talking to people. And I got all these little 30-second stories that I sort of built up over time, maybe 90 seconds. And they're really engaging, and I can really just control. And I'll give you an example. One time I'm at a wedding, and it was a big wedding. And there was sometimes the father of the bride or he gets up there and he's like, "I'm going to tell you the whole story of my daughter." And you watch the elevation of the wedding go from way up high, just people are sleeping on their tables.
Yep.
And I was at a wedding like this, and the energy was really low. And I mean, I don't know if this is the right thing to do, but I started like shouting things out from my chair, like sort of hypey things, like even simple things like kiss the bride, or I'd shout other things. And there was a room of 150 people and they started laughing. They started like, you could just see the energy just raising up again.
So this is in the middle of this fellow's story.
It was afterward when the
Oh,
mood
okay.
was all down. Yeah,
Oh,
I at least waited.
so you were allowed to finish your meal. That's good.
Yeah, I could shout out. It was at moments that I was okay to shout out. But here's the thing though, you can elevate the room of 150 people on your own with just one-liners. And a lot of people don't realize that. And you could also lower the energy of a room easily, just as easily. You could do that.
Okay. So that's another thing. You have a bunch of these short stories that are good for elevating energy. What else? What else would you say you're competent at?
I like one-liners and punchlines, and I have no fear if I bomb them. I think that's a big one. I think that speakers fear bombing a joke. Like even you want to know the first joke I ever remember, and it's a dumb joke, but here it goes. It goes, "What do you call a fish without an eye?"
A fish. Yeah. And you didn't get a laugh for that?
It's so dumb. It's the dumbest joke. I heard it about 20 years ago, David. I heard it 20. It's the only joke. It's the first joke I ever remembered. But I love to tell it to people because they don't get it. And I think that once you overcome that fear of people not laughing and learning those savor lines, you have a savor line where, hey, I got 100 more where that came from.
Right.
And then once you can really start to get into your own, they start thinking like, I am funny. I love to entertain people because I find that there can be a lot more entertainment I'm in the professional speaking community now in CAPS. And, I was on the call a while back and I heard a CAPS member talking about getting a laugh every 6 minutes. They're like, that's a really good thing. Every 6 minutes getting a laugh. And in my head, I was like, oh my goodness, I'd feel like I was sort of bombing if I didn't have some sort of like really engaging sort of laughter in 6 minutes. Like,
now, did that person say to get a laugh every 6 minutes or to make an attempt every 6 minutes? Because I think those are two different things.
Yeah, it was to make an attempt really to like go
Okay.
for that. And like they were like okay with there being like 15 or 20 minutes or without a laugh at all. And I mean, it's just personal stuff, but I just think that if the audience is laughing, it's a good sign that they're engaged in what you're doing and saying to them.
So first of all, for the listeners, CAPS is the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, of which you're a member, Devin, just so people know what that is. So it really sounds like you've been working on your craft. Now, in terms of where to from here, what's sort of your vision? What's out there? What's the pinnacle? I mean, you can always climb more heights and things like that, but where would you like to see yourself in, let's just say 5 years, just to set a time frame on it?
Mm-hmm. These are really good questions, David. Things I need to think about here. And I've been thinking a lot about it because truthfully, like one thing that I would like to do is just from being a member of Toastmasters and being at all these different events is I'd like to bring an event into Vancouver, sort of like an open mic for speakers. First of all, I'd like to have more open mics, a place where speakers could go. Comedians have it. They have places where they go hang out and they get their open mics. I'd like to have open mics for speakers where we do competitions and we do like, I don't remember what it's called, but sort of speaker battles where we have where business owners can come in. And it's not just look at this big name speaker coming here and presenting to you. It's an opportunity for you to be in an audience and for you to even get up on stage. And I would really love to build up an event like that. I kind of got started. I started a meetup and I'm building my community. I'm building a newsletter right now. So I got 100 people on my newsletter. But for me personally, that's one area where I see myself in 5 years is working on toward that. And then another area is I want to be on big stages and I really want to travel around the world and be a speaker who is even sought after. That would be amazing for me to be a speaker.
So that's what you'd like to be doing. Maybe this may be digging too deep, and if you say so, just let me know. But so what's your motive? What's the motivation behind that? That's what you want to do, but what's driving that? What's the internal, mechanism that says something will be satisfied if I were to do this, if I were to bring a group of people into Vancouver, if I was to be on these big stages, if I was to be sought after.
Mm-hmm. I want to shout out to Natalie Plamondon. She is obviously a major speaker in Canada, in a winner of all kinds of awards. And one day she sat down with me and was asking me about my business. And she's like, what kind of words come to mind? And I was coming up with words like status and wealth and influence. And then she would ask me about each one and let me talk about it. And one of the things that I would do, like on certain words, like influence, is, and I'll answer your question in a second here, but I would go back into the negative when I was thinking about influence, because I've always wanted to be an influential person, but I would talk myself into the negative of it. And the way she explained it to me is then I would catch myself and talk myself into the positive of it. So when you're asking me, like, what is that internal driver? I want to be a person of influence. And what really drives me is that when I look back at my family history, and my mom did a family history of our family for like 500 or 600 years. And when I'm looking at my bloodline and I'm seeing all these wonderful people in my family history, it really makes me want to up my game and give something back for the future generations of my family as well. And I have a big, like, I love reading books from my family, like that people wrote, like some of these, I don't even know where they came from. There's like, you almost flip the page and the paper almost crumbles, right? But I'm reading this book and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like my blood and my family. And I want to give that back to my family as well.
So, okay. So I guess I want to push a little bit further about that, because so you want to influence and have influence. And that's a noble objective for sure. And again, if I'm pushing too hard, just, say enough, cancel this, this is over. But influence to what end? Like part of it is to show to your family that support and things like that. But is there another objective to, behind the influence? And obviously the bigger this, well, I shouldn't necessarily say this. Sometimes the bigger the stage you're on, the more influence, but there's a lot of people that are on big stages that have zero influence. Like they're a great talker, but there's nothing that you can actually do from that to make a difference in your own life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, when I'm on the stage, I really want to be, I don't even have to say I want to be. I am transformative for audiences because they're in my presentations together and we're doing exercises and I do joke exercises. I just did a presentation and people always tell me, oh, I'm not funny or whatever, but I give them a simple, like, if cause and effect punchline. And then I give them a punchline and you wouldn't believe how funny the audience is when you just give them a punchline and then give someone a mic out in the audience and listen to them speak. And I find that is super transformative for audiences when they learn about body language and they learn about like phrasing and hook phrasing and hypnotic storytelling techniques. These are exercises that I give them. So when I'm speaking from stage, I feel like I'm there to make them a confident presenter and to overcome those ideas that so they can stop going, oh, I don't like public speaking. Yeah, but you've never had formal speaker training. So if you've never had formal speaker training, how do you know you don't like public speaking? I don't like playing the piano, but nobody's ever taught me a few chords on the piano. So maybe if they taught me a couple chords, I'd probably like to go around and jam that out when I went somewhere. And that's really a part of it. But on the influence side of things, it's kind of a personal thing. Like I want to have stature. And I, when I was doing a lot of drugs and I'd go down in the hole, that was the last place I wanted to be. I wanted to be up on a podium and I wanted to be on top of the world, not at the bottom in this horrible place. And I feel like if you know what it's like to be down there in that hole at the rock bottom, it's like if you know what love is, you're going to know what hate is, right? So all of my drive almost is like, I never want to go back there again. And so I've just been like climbing my way out of there and just climbing my way up for it's personal. It's like a personal thing, I guess.
One of the things that I see you do that I would imagine be very effective for others, Devin, is you're quite comfortable, like you say, with a joke bombing. And I think for you to be vulnerable about that and be able to laugh at yourself, I think gives other people permission to be less than perfect. Right. And it really is about giving an attempt at something rather than having to be good at it, because that stops so many people from getting on stage for the first time. So you're on stage. What else do you do? Like, what else do you do in your business? Because it sounds like you do some coaching or training or something like that as well.
Yeah, I actually I work with quite a few CEOs come to me. And even I have to sign NDAs with a lot of them, which kind of stinks because I want to use them as testimonies, you know? But yeah, I find that like C-suite sort of level executives who really want to up their game, usually they're like my age, like, are in their 30s or 40s maybe, or even younger sometimes. So I coach them, and I used to coach a lot of kids. Like I've literally coached a couple thousand kids all over the world, all all online. And I'll tell you what, I this is something all speakers should do. They should speak to 100 groups of kids online.
Wow.
Because those kids will have 10 tabs open. Like they're not, if you don't engage the kids, they don't care anything what you're saying. And if you're just talking at them, you're going to get nowhere with them. And so it's a good practice because you really got to start tuning into how do I keep these kids' attention?
No, that's a great point. And I was just reflecting back on something you said about the NDAs with CEOs. Like, for example, which CEOs would ask you for an NDA? No, I'm just kidding. No, but I think what the sorry,
Good. That was good.
couldn't help myself.
Stay away.
But I imagine one of the things why a CEO would want the NDA was basically to give them permission to be vulnerable and try some stuff on their own and start to develop some skills. So the first time they try something isn't in front of the AGM at one of the most important meetings, sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. And for various reasons. Sometimes like, another thing that I love to do for speakers is to have them send me a video and then I do a reaction video. Because you can
Okay.
really look at their body language. Something that I take a lot of pride in is I've watched a couple thousand at least speakers with no sound on.
Mm-hmm.
So you really start to see like if what they're saying with their body language makes sense with the sound off, then you really know that speaker's driving a message home. But a lot of times, the body language will just be sort of one sort of thing over and over and over. So it's good for a CEO or a C-suite executive to look at their body language and see what they're saying with their body language. And that usually changes a lot for them. But in that process, they're also sharing information about, some insider information that you don't want to, you don't want people like David cracking out of you.
Yeah. I would not think of doing that. Yeah, and I find, just to your point about things look differently and when you have the sound off, so that I think many times people operate from a script, and it's often not a script that they wrote. So it's really hard to get that in your body if you don't own it, and it certainly shows up the importance of doing that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And a script is it just is, you want to get speaking to a level where you can just speak. Like that's why I'd say I'm an expert speaker, is because I was watching in the politics the other day and I saw even at that level, like they're speaking all the time. And I'm not going to mention names, but I saw one of them pull out a piece of paper and read like a 30-second blurb. Like I could have memorized it in a couple of seconds and read that 30-second blurb to the house. And for me, that was kind of shocking because you think that level of speaker would be comfortable just saying
So I guess the only thing that I would push back a little bit on, and especially if it's something like it's at an AGM or something like that, and there's lots of people listening and recording on it, if you don't get the words exactly right, it can have consequences in the stock market. I personally would much rather see someone pick it up and be seen to read it than pretending they're not reading it, but actually reading it. Like just kind of
Yeah.
looking down at their eyes or looking at a screen or things like that. Because to me, that's much more authentic. I agree that you should be able to memorize that, but if you don't have time, better not to pretend that you've got it memorized when you don't. At least in my opinion.
Yeah.
But then,
And in
but
my
then,
opinion, it's like you're probably just, you know what you're saying. So just say it. And,
yeah.
there is going to be some backlash, or some people will backlash, but almost no matter what you say, somebody's going to backlash. Even if you scripted it out, somebody's going to backlash on something in there anyway.
Well, like poor Taylor Swift, like I just can't believe what she has to put up with. It's just there's always the haters out there. I say that there's always people that are looking for the gray lining in the silver cloud. It's like they take great pride and joy of finding that. Well, so Devin, if this has been really enjoyable. I found out some more things about you, which I think actually brings us closer the next time we have a conversation. And I'm going to keep looking for the things that you're doing well, and reinforce that as you climb onto those big stages. What I would ask, if you could offer a couple of suggestions to people that were thinking of speaking or were concerned about it, what are 2 or 3 tips that you could give them that they could work on to help them overcome some of that initial resistance?
That's really good. The first tip that I would give them is a mindset tip. Instead of saying, and again, this comes from Natalie, again, another one from her. Instead of saying, I'm not good or I don't like it or whatever, you want to put that into the past tense. So I used to not like speaking, but now I'm in the process of learning how to overcome my fear. And that'll help your brain get you to moving forward. Hey, I hope I'm not saying things that are going to get me red flagged out there in the world. Because I do just talk. Okay. So tip number 1 would be to put the ideas of the negatives into the past, and then start telling yourself that you're in the process of learning to overcome it. And then tip number 2 would be to I'm trying to think of like the easiest possible thing that someone could do, would be to talk to strangers and use sort of yes set things for strangers. Like, let's say you're in the grocery store and it's busy, and you just purposely say to the cashier, "Oh, it's busy in here today." And they'll go, "Yes." And you're like, "It's a nice day outside today." And they'll go, "Yes." And then you walk outside and maybe there's a guy panhandling out there, and you're like, "Oh, you look like you're having comfortable today." So you start to talk to strangers and overcome that fear with regular common people all around that you're going to talk to anyway in the day. And I believe that that's a good strategy to start building your speaking skills up and getting through that uncomfortable point of talking to strangers and rejection and all of that.
And if you had a third one?
My third one would be to go on the internet, get a joke, and then go around and tell it to everybody that you meet, your friends, your family, some stranger, the barista, and just watch how people react. And instead of getting hooked up on wanting them to laugh, start getting hooked at looking for the reaction that they're giving you. Because our message means nothing if the receiver isn't receiving it. It has no, you could be the worst speaker you could be the worst speaker and have the same effect as someone who's the best speaker who can't get a reaction out of people.
Yeah.
And so really, like, if you start looking at how are people reacting to what I'm saying, I think that those are really good ways to start your speaking to become an expert speaker. Because in my personal opinion, when you get on the big stage, you should be showing off your skill set. Like that's like showtime. That's like, look at what I'm able to do here. You should not be learning there. You should be learning when you're talking to one person and 2 people. So a fourth tip that I would give is to write out one story, just one 30-second story. And I'll tell you one that I have that I've been doing this. I've been incorporating this in. I had a client last year and I was complaining about my knee injury. I have an ACL tear and he owns a gym. So he says to me, oh, that's the difference between you and me. I wouldn't complain about it. I'd go harder and I'd become stronger and I'd just take fitness to the next level. And inside, I got pretty angry. I think I want to flip him the bird, right? And what happened was I got angry and then I thought, geez, what can I do to overcome this anger? So I go to the gym and I pump some weights and I had endorphins. I was so high on endorphins all afternoon that I kept going to the gym every day for the next year and I dropped 30 pounds. And the moral of the story is that we can use our anger as a tool rather than pushing it off as a tool to get the things that we want.
So your 4 tips reminded me, just triggered a couple of others that I haven't rehearsed. So just to try one, like you talked about, get a joke. I would get a joke and intentionally tell it badly.
Yeah,
right. So you mess up the punchline just to see how people respond, because that's trial by fire is one thing. And the other thing I'd suggest is, do not compare yourself to other speakers.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's just, the kiss of death. Like, you can look at them and I think back to your mindset you were talking about. Look at that speaker and say, I'm not there yet. I'm on my way to becoming my own kind of a good speaker. Because that comparisonitis just cripples when you think, I could never speak like that person. Well, why would you want to? You should want to speak like yourself, right? Including mistelling jokes intentionally.
Yeah. 100%, David. 100. It's actually really funny when you blow a punchline and people are just kind of looking at you like, well, what's next? And you're like, oh shoot, I blew, when you have that moment, like, damn it, I forgot the punchline or whatever. I would just, yeah.
Or the reverse, just tell the punchline and say, so what do you think the joke was supposed to be? Right?
I'm going to do that one. I'm going to do that one. I love it. Hey, and I want to backtrack to that thing that I was talking about, how they're like, if you get humor every 6 minutes, because coming up to what you're saying, that is just my personal thing for me. But other speakers, I've listened to some amazing speakers and it's not laugh out loud. Like they're just like you said, everybody is unique and it's about you tapping into your own, whatever you are. Not everybody's, some people are a lot more serious and some people like you are a lot more like you're sort of transformative. You can adapt anywhere.
Sorry, I just lost my ability to adapt to what you're saying there. No, just kidding. So, Devin, thank you so much. There's just been so much gold in what you've offered today, and I really hope some of our listeners try some of these things, especially some of the tips. So, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
And this is David Guthrow. Discover fresh perspectives. Hopefully, you've gathered some today, and just subscribe and catch some more later. So, thank you very much. Catch you next time. Subscribe now, because on Fresh Perspectives, every episode is an opportunity to explore new horizons and redefine what's achievable.